Sam Shoemaker wrote a poem, I Stand by the Door. I liken this poem to being the church. I stand by the door. I neither go too far in nor stay too far out. The door is the most important door in the world. It is the door through which men walk when they find God. There's no use my going way inside and staying there when so many are still outside. And they, as much as I, crave to know where the door is. And all that so many ever find is only the wall where a door ought to be. They creep along the wall like blind men with outstretched, groping hands, feeling for a door, knowing there must be a door. Yet they never find it. So I stand by the door. The most tremendous thing in the world is for men to find that door, the door that leads to God. The most important thing any man can do is to take hold of one of those blind, groping hands and put it on the latch that only clicks and opens to the man's own hand. Men die outside that door, as starving beggars die on cold nights in cruel cities in the dead of winter. They die for want of what is within their grasp. They live on the other side of that door. They live to find it. Nothing else matters compared to helping them find the door and open it and walk in it and find Him. So I stand by the door. Go in, great saints, go all the way in. Go way down into the cavernous cellars and way up into the spacious attics, into the vast roomy house, this house where God is. Go into the deepest of hidden casements of withdrawal, of silence, of sainthood. Some must inhabit those inner rooms and know the depths and the heights of God, and then call outside to the rest of us how wonderful it is inside. Sometimes I take a deeper look in. Sometimes I venture a little farther in, but my place seems to be a little closer to the opening. So I stand by the door. The people too far in do not see how near some are to leaving. Those too far in seem preoccupied with the wonder of it all. Somebody must watch for those who have just entered the door but would like to run away. So for them too, I stand by the door. I admire the people who go way in, but I wish they would not forget how it was before they got in. Then they would be able to help the people who have not even found the door, or the people who want to run away again from God. You can go too deeply in, and you can stay too long, and you can forget the people outside the door. As for me, I shall take my old accustomed place, near enough to God to hear Him and know He is there, but not so far from men as not to hear them and remember they are there too. Where? Outside the door. Thousands of them, millions of them, billions of them. But more important for me, one of them, 2 of them, 10 of them, whose hands I am intended to put on the latch. So I shall stand by the door and wait for those who seek it. I had rather be a doorkeeper. So I stand by the door.
Greetings and welcome to the Friday Morning Nameless. I'm Chad the Alcoholic, and do I have a show for you? This might just be the greatest show that ever happened in all of this channel's history, or even YouTube history ever. Who knows? I don't know. All I know is we got one Lutheran, supposedly, and two Catholics. So I'm probably...
Supposedly.
Sorry. And so we got ourselves a Meandering show. Now, typically on the Meandering show, I'd be out in the garage smoking some cigarettes and shooting the chit with Neil down there. But since it's Zelden's first time on the channel, I always like to wear the old nice suit to welcome you, sir.
I feel welcomed. I'm excited.
I got the denim, so also that's all I have. So I have this, but you know, my daily garb is it's a coverall, denim coveralls, and they are very good for tile setters. So
I approve, just for the record.
Wonderful.
For the record, yes.
So I am so grateful that you decided to join us. I thought that you'd be a really good addition to this conversation. I've heard your conversation with Pete from Strange Theology, as well as numerous
Christian Baxter.
Yep.
Baxter. That was fun. Yeah,
that was a good one.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Numerous conversations with the ever famous Griswold Grimm, Kale the General, as well as Paul Vanderklay. So I'm very excited. We've exchanged a couple of emails. You read one of my poems, and I just think you're a cool cat. There's so many topics I'd love to talk with you about, as far as, you know, poetry and music and film. But this particular topic, this morning I was listening to the John Vervaeke and Jordan Hall conversation, and right near the end of that conversation, there was this thing that Jordan Hall said that I really understood and that I felt was very important. And I was inspired to ask Neil, because I was going to take the night off, but I'm kind of a glutton for punishment. So,
yeah.
So I asked Neil, hey, we should get this show going tonight. And you are one of the gentlemen that was invited. So do you have anything you'd like to say right off the bat?
No, let's jump in, man. I'm looking forward to this.
So a lot of the topic is, now all of you who are watching, if you were paying attention, I already played in the intro is this poem called I Stand by the Door. That was written by an Episcopalian preacher in the 1920s or 1930s. He was a preacher in the Oxford Group movement, and he was also a very close spiritual advisor to a gentleman named Bill Wilson, who was basically the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so a lot of it, Bill's spiritual formation came from this guy, as well as later on a gentleman named Father Ed Dowling, who was a Jesuit priest from St. Louis. And so Bill had a lot of spiritual formation from a lot of different people, primarily Christians, and Christians of many different backgrounds. So that's very interesting. And this is also a big part of my shaping in my spiritual life, is just being having an open mind to spiritual topics as such. And so I'm kind of a wild one. Like I said, I would say that if I would identify as in like very cautious way, a Christian, only because I'm like a terrible Christian. But other than that, I would say that I'm a mere Christian who has membership at a Lutheran church.
Aspiring? Maybe the word aspiring is good.
Well, sometimes I think, why the hell aren't I Catholic, to be quite honest with you? But, you know, my wife said that I probably would be disciplined enough, and she was raised Catholic. So
that's funny.
Also, hashtag wives are the best. This is one thing that I've really been noticing a lot. In a lot of the conversations, wives are so vital to many of our lives. A lot of the folks that I hear talking, and they're a big piece of the puzzle. So, all right, I'm going to us play on this little clip here. This is the clip from the John Vervaeke show, and we'll see where we go from here. Let's see if I can get re-inspired, because I kind of forgot what he said already.
But how do you think being a Christian, in the way that you've described, a non-rivalrous Christian that is oriented towards a religio to pure relationality that is expressed in love and light and logos and life, if I can be so bold, how do you see that addressing the meta crisis?
Right? Okay.
Right.
That's good. Let me throw one else in. Let me throw something else in too.
Sure.
And maybe almost as like a cross, like a diagonal. But you mentioned fellowship, and interestingly, I found myself having an experience over the past 2 weeks that I've been calling the fellowship of the Spirit. And I mean this in terms of actual specific individuals. I'm beginning to notice that perhaps you're a member of this thing, and I'm calling it the fellowship of the Spirit. And it's obviously, as a component of the fellowship of the Spirit, is relationality at the level of dialogos. But another piece, another tone, is we're calling each other home.
Yes, I think that's right. That's well said.
And I'll put a piece out there that comes like a little bit more of the Chevelle record, the No Man Left Behind.
Yeah.
Which is a deep, deep commitment, because some people are committed to not coming home. But our love is great enough that we will find a way to reach out to them, and we will bring them home.
That's excellent.
So that's the clip. And, well, I'll just get your guys' first impressions on this.
Well, I was struck originally, just right off the bat, Jordan invokes this notion of a non-rivalrous Christianity. And I'm not entirely sure what he means by that, but it definitely resonates with me. It definitely resonates with kind of what we do here, folks like us. You foregrounded the conversation, Chad, with, I'm with one Lutheran and two Roman Catholics. And, I'm amazed at how little that matters to me now versus the way maybe 10 years ago I probably still wouldn't have said anything, but I would have harbored some sort of snarky, zingers that I just sort of swallow. And not anymore. Like that's just not at all what animates me, at all. So I don't know. How do you take him to mean this sort of non-rivalrous Christianity?
I think with earlier in the clip, because it's been, I don't know, like 12 hours since I watched it, but it was something to do with like how can you say that you are Christian if you want to close the doors on others or something like this, or because like he even went out as far as this call, like he said he felt that Vervaeke was very much a Christian, and that in the fact that like he won't call himself one is kind of like makes him one or something to that effect. I don't want to put words in his mouth. If you guys, I'll put the link in the description, that way you can watch it. Yeah. That's near the end, and the end piece of that whole conversation was the best for me because it was the most salient pieces that were like psh, 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 psh. And it's I think it's actually what you said. It's what we're doing. I think it's what we've been doing in like the in this online space called this little corner of the internet for a few years now. And I mean, everybody has their own little things that they are really don't, they're not going to budge on, but it doesn't prevent us from having a fellowship. And that's what stood out to me was the fellowship of the Spirit.
Yeah, I really like that too. And I guess that's 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 what I'm getting at. The I think there's a real temptation to sort of double down on distinctives, right? And to exclude, I guess is what you're talking about. You're either on the team or you're not on the team. And I know part of my migration over to this little corner was I was very tempted. I think I just said this, but I was very tempted to double down on all the distinctives, right? And but something finally didn't sit well with me, because if I were to take that seriously, I would have to cut people out that I knew to be genuine lovers of Christ. And so part of that, my friendship with Rod, my work with Rod, but also part of that is that I know my own path to adult Christianity was through my evangelical friends. And I lived out in Los Angeles, and I had a ton of Presbyterian and megachurch and non-megachurch Protestant friends who, whatever differences we may have had about this, that, and the other, like I didn't question 1 second, that they were real, and they believed in Jesus. And that just, when I reminded myself that if I were going to double down on the sort of the commitments, there's this thing in old school Catholicism, no salvation outside of the Catholic Church. And like that's a big thing amongst the trads, right? And I just remember challenging myself, like, do I really think that Paul Vanderklay is like going to hell? Like, really? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, that's absurd. Like, that's absurd. I'm sorry. And maybe I'm like, have destroyed all credibility amongst, the Catholics. I just, and the answer is no.
Well,
go ahead, Neil. Yeah.
Yeah. My mind goes to my childhood, the Cranberries, Zombie.
Yeah.
30 years ago, we were killing each other,
Yeah.
30 years ago. And now what you're saying, and I agree with it completely, that let's say Catholic Lutheran divide is less meaningful to me than and what's weird about it to me is that and I've mentioned this in a few other things. I go back to the litmus test of, does it increase, is what we're doing here decreasing or increasing my faith, strengthening my faith in Christ, or weakening it? And I would say the fact that we're able to find this glue, and for lack of a better word, agape, or whatever you want to call it, is only strengthening. It's sort of like we're testing to see, is there a universal truth, a universal love, a universal connection? And we're finding that maybe there in fact is, and we're finding in our social reality, let's say, that those things are able to transcend our differences and transcend and unite, I would say.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, so yeah, I mean, so a lot of things are going through my mind right now. There's and you'll have to forgive me, Kale. Sometimes I'm just kind of all over the place, but I was thinking so there's a lot of, like, since I've been around the corner, there's been a lot of talk about the East and the West, and this concept kind of hit me between the eyes about a week ago. This idea of, this is no longer East-West thing. We're actually in like we have Middle Earth theology.
Yeah, that's interesting. Really interesting.
But I don't know what that means, though, because I didn't read any Tolkien. So my wife loves Tolkien. But if that's true, how might that be? How might that be the case? Because, like, here, I'll give you some more background. Another background on my thinking a lot of this stuff. Have you ever read A Hiding Place, the Corey ten Boom
I'm not. I think I'm familiar with it, but go ahead, please.
There's a portion in this book where so there's these fleas, and and they're like bothering everybody, and but and then Corey's this she's like in her 50s or something like this, and she has a sister who's also there who's older than her, and she's like this saint, and she tells her, I think her name is Betsy, I can't remember her name, but she tells Corey, be thankful for everything, even the fleas. And she's like, the fleas? Are you insane? The fleas? Well, somehow they ended up smuggling a Bible. Somebody was able to smuggle a Bible into the basement of this concentration camp called Ravensbrück. And every night in that basement, there'd be Jewish, Protestant, Orthodox, and Catholic believers who would all be worshiping together in the basement of that church. And not once were they complaining or toiling about this rivalry, let's say. And it was all due to the fleas. Because Nazis didn't want to go down there because the fleas were so disgusting. Now, like, I just think about that, and I'm like, does it really take that, for us to be able to love, and even take it a step further? Like AA has taught me something like this extreme concept, which I haven't had to necessarily put it to practice yet. But like, if somebody like Stalin or Mao or like Jeffrey Dahmer comes into the room of Alcoholics Anonymous and says, I'm suffering from alcoholism.
Yeah.
Will you help me? Like, I'm supposed to say yes.
Yeah. And
set aside what I think I believe about this person, because they asked for help, and that's this principle, and that's that's extreme in some sense. But I mean, maybe I'm being a little sentimental here, but I think that's what we're doing here. And so this thing that he talks about, this fellowship, and then this no man left behind is what he said. I like that bit a lot. And so I don't know.
Because the what is it, the old quip, is that there are no atheists in the foxholes, and it's almost like that there are no denominations in foxholes. There's a sort of a corollary there, because like the kinds of conversations that we are allowed to have here, and I think all of us have felt genuinely fed by. I can't just like roll into the office and have these kind of conversations, right? and so those of us who have migrated to this place have found this fellowship, that Jordan Hall talked about. What do you call it? I think the fellowship of the spirit or something like that. Now, as a student of history, I get a little bit nervous about these kinds of things, because there are these old traditions in which people have like absolutely lost their minds and gone crazy and gotten into sort of the millenarian spirit. But I take Jordan for at his word here. I think it's a real thing, and we feel that spirit amongst us. It's like, I had a conversation earlier today with somebody who I knew. I actually knew him first outside of the corner, and anyway, so he wanted to record a show, and I said, sure, yeah, like let's do it. I knew that he had been sort of wanting to get back into things. I said, sure, like let's go. And so we were talking about it, and like 3/4 of the way through the conversation, I mentioned PVK. And I said, are you familiar with the corner? He's like, oh man, PVK all the time. Like, and I had no idea, that he, I mean, I had felt a kinship with him already, which is why I agreed to go on the show with him. But the fact that here's this guy, like, I don't even know if he's like a known entity out in TLC land, but there was immediately like, it's like, I was comfortable and sharing with him, in this sort of this back and forth together in a way that that I knew before I knew he was a member, like he was an honorary member of the quarter, even if he didn't know it, because he was there. There's a high degree of openness, like taking the spirit seriously, like all the kind of things that we talk about, and and so this no man left behind thing. Did you notice that it really like struck Vervaeke? Like he was sort of, you know,
Yeah.
really, like I think he
Yeah.
even sort of physically like, whoa, you know.
Grimm's gonna have a field day with the body language if he picks up
Okay,
on that
yeah,
one.
yeah, okay, yeah, that's right. Because I'm not sure that Vervaeke was expecting that answer from Jordan.
Yeah.
So
When
so
it came into the corner a long time ago, I was asking because I was curious. You know, I've always so I wasn't raised Christian, and I always had like this kind of culturally imposed resentment, I guess, or cultural influence of resentment, you know, about what the Christians did, and you know, but as I started to mature a little more, because like my conversion is only a few years old now, and one of the questions I was asking early on in like on the Discord was like, you know, as we as Christians, like what can we do today, or where did we go wrong in the past that got us into the position that we're in today? Because I don't think it's just an outside thing that happened. Like this what didn't just come crushing the Christian community. Like a lot of it is brought about from like this idea of you can't destroy it from the outside, it can only be destroyed from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were like, well, let's not focus on the bad things that we did, let's focus on the good things we did. And it's like, well, I mean,
so here's the shift that I think happened is that once you have a culture where all cultural pressure is on attending church, dressing nicely for mass, saying the right things, socializing in the right way. Because if you do all these things, then you're a pillar of your community and you get business and your family respects you and you climb the ladder, the hierarchy of life, right? So that's all wonderful and self-reinforcing. The problem becomes when and this is really what we're seeing now. And Kale, I'm interested in your take on this because my take on it is increasingly the case that the people in the pews are there because they genuinely want to be there. They're not trying to score social status points. They're not trying to impress. Sometimes there's family reasons that they're there. But it's increasingly the case that all the social pressures are, let's say, at the very least, neutral in regard to someone practicing their faith. And so I do see a smaller church, and I do see us in the wilderness for some time, but I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. And I think Pope Benedict saw the same thing. You probably know more about that.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he made the call literally all the way back in 1958. So, you know, that is a long, you know, talk about making an early call that has proven to be, you know, I would say prophetic in some very, very real way. Yeah. Yeah, you know, so it's interesting. So I live in a blue state, and you know, you live in a red state, and Chad, you live in like a hybrid state. Wouldn't you say that Wisconsin is purple?
yeah.
Ish, you know.
From my point of view, it looks more red than blue, but for some reason, blue won. I don't believe it, but yes.
Yeah. So I am, you know, of the three of us, I live in the area that is most, you know, I would say hostile, you know, negative world, to use Aaron Wren's taxonomy, which I think is very helpful. You know, Neil, you still live in a world where, you can still, like, there are parts of your world where being a church going member in the archdiocese brings with it a certain amount of status.
So what's interesting is I have status as a result of my involvement, and the higher generation, the older generation has bestowed that status on me.
Right.
But among people of my generation,
that's right.
Among
Okay, that's
people
good.
of my generation, and the younger generation that's coming after me, among themselves, they have zero status gained by participating.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. So I think that, just sort of a certain amount of local variation I think is important to point out with all this. But I agree. I think that I'm the old guy in the group here, at clocking in at 52, 51, 51. How old am I? 52. And gosh, man, I'm getting old. You know, I would say that everyone below me in age wise is I'm 51, by the way. Everyone below me understands that they will get zero status for being an upstanding member of the church. So no, I take your point, Neil. I think that's an important thing to point out. So therefore, yeah, that it's then the church is going to sort of select for people who either don't give a rip about status, or in terms of their own personal hierarchy, they recognize that status seeking is not the point, right? The only status that I care about is like Jesus status, right? I want the Lord to know, I want to be counted in that number, to sort of riff on, when the saints go marching in, right? So but that makes us increasingly strange and weird. And I think therefore there's a certain these kinds of propositional distinctions become really silly when there's a much bigger battery of guns pointed in your general direction. There's a Yiddish word for concentrating on or focusing on excessively small little areas of distinction and missing the larger picture. And I think the way you pronounce it, it's pilpul, Pilpul. And I think that those of us in the corner recognize that pilpul is a distraction from the bigger things. But what is interesting is that it has not been used as an excuse for those of us here to not care about big questions. In fact, it sort of has freed us up in some weird way to care about way bigger questions, at least from my way of thinking, than particular conceptions of sacramentality, or what all those sorts of things. That, look, if you really push me, I'll render an opinion for you. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm friends with y'all here, and with others in the corner, not because of the correct take on, I don't know, a catechism question, but whether you think that we are transitioning out of the iron box of modernism, or something like that. Some of the sort of the big picture things that we tend to chew over in this thinky talky space. I think that's how you call it. Yeah.
And I also kind of think what's interesting is like maybe at one point it would be like my friend's enemy is a enemy, something like that. Like, well, we're gonna unite because we have a common enemy, and I don't think that's the case. I don't get that.
I agree with you.
What distinction are you making then, Chad? I think I'm following, but I want to tease it out of you.
Like, I don't think most of us in the that who are participating at this level are joining because we have, like, we're going to set aside our differences so that we can defeat a common enemy.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I feel like it's more like no, each of us are secure where we're sitting.
Mm-hmm.
We have questions. We're open to things. We're also closed to things.
Mm-hmm.
But like this, like it's not a common enemy, but a common victory that bonds us. And like, I don't know how to. I don't know.
Well, maybe it's related to what Jordan Hall said. The second part, we're also calling each other home.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. We're also calling each other home. You ever see The Simpsons, Kale, of the Protestant heaven and the Catholic heaven?
Classic.
You ever see that contrast?
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Like obviously, if that's a thing, God, I apologize, and I find that hilarious if that's a thing. But I seriously have my doubts that that's a thing.
Yeah. No,
it's like when Christ says, like, your distinctions as male and female aren't going to matter. It's like we have no idea of the distinctions that are going to matter versus I think we can say that sin matters. I think we can say that with very strong certainty. However, we can also say with very strong certainty that forgiveness and grace matter tremendously. But like, so I said this to Chad one day where I said, every time PVK talks about what is it, total depravity or something, like I cannot separate that from St. John Paul's teaching on the primacy of grace. Like that just sounds like primacy of grace to me.
Yeah. And so much of this, like how much of our like friction points are just different language, right? That sort of gets lost in those kind of confusions. And that, to me, the grace of my adult life has been to spend a lot of time outside of Catholic bubbles. Now I've lived at this sort of Catholic boarding school for the last, number of years, but I mean, just I've have a deep experience with evangelical Christians. I have deep experiences with nuns, NONESs, and with Eastern Orthodox folks, and so like to me that has proven that all these things that I thought I cared about when I was 20 and was all about those distinctions and all about waging apologetics wars and whatnot. I just realized that in the foxhole, in the bunker thing. And again, I know what you mean, Chad. I know it's not just because, but in this other thing, like none of that matters, not in any real way because it foregrounds, bullet points over, relationships. And
how did you come to this realization? Like the softening, how does your heart get softened, would you say?
Good question. In one way, sin, me screwing up, that, when you live a life, when you live a life and you sin spectacularly, there's a way in which, and when you sin spectacularly, and it has been like an unconscious endeavor on your part, you emerge on the other side of having done something spectacularly bad, thinking to yourself, holy crap, like, how did I do that? I didn't think I would ever do that. Like, I'm a smart person. Like, I'm a together person. I'm basically a good person. Like, oh my God, I was behaving in like really depraved ways and I was fooling myself. And so you find yourself on the other side of that, and you're like, well, what else do I not know? I mean, I thought I knew myself, yet these series of things that I've done are, completely disprove a kind of theory of mine, which suggests that you're in control. Well, then what else? What else is there? And so for me, my 20s were really humbling. My, 20s into my late 20s were really humbling to me when I recognized that, no amount of having the correct catechism kept me from being a piece of garbage. It'd be like not just like passively bad, but like actively bad.
Yeah.
Like that was humbling. And so
for me, it was grappling with like if I really believe this.
Yeah.
like so when I had a conversion experience, Kale, I had a crazy and when I was kind of, I'll say, coming to Christ, like just the craziness of things like love your enemies.
Yeah.
And all like, and that means all the way, like the craziness of what that really means.
Yeah. It's radical.
And, for the foolishness of God is greater than the wisdom of men. That was the epistle reading this past week. And that, man, it's stuff like that. And it's anyway. And
right. Isn't it interesting how like even like that passage, it's so interesting to me that you can hear that whatever 50 times before, and then all of a sudden either you do something or something happens to you, and then like you hear it again, you're like, what how have I heard that 50 times? It's the same bloody words, it's the same thing, and then all of a sudden here I
I've
am.
only heard it 3 or 4 times, but yeah, you're older than I am.
But you're right. So I'm the old guy. But then all of a sudden you're like, oh my, that nailed it there. Well, that's pretty good, God. Like, what else you got? Because that man, what else? So for me, it was a continuing series of, man, what else do I know? What else don't I know? What else don't I know? And so Chad, I guess to answer your question is that really defanged a lot of, some, what, can you have a puppy and they have those like really razor sharp baby teeth? It's like when you get older, like you go, those adult teeth come in and they're not as sharp, but they're stronger, right? They're more designed to do the task of just like eating day in and day out. Not so. I don't know. For me, it has worn down those edges. And therefore, even when I'm fairly convinced of what's right and true, and like everybody knows me, know that I'm not shy about saying what I think is true. I still have, I haven't forsaken the mercy of God that I experienced on the other side of having, messed up spectacularly. I take that with me, and therefore, all the more reason why I take those things seriously. So that's a function of age and wisdom. And humility is self-knowledge, right? So I don't know that, and then having to kind of remember, like, oh, actually, I know things. I
Well, I feel like you're sort of remembering that role in the corner. And you do have that status as, hey, this is a guy who not only has been through the trenches with us, but he also has, let's say, the education, but also the wisdom to back it up. So don't mess it up, Kale. Don't mess it up.
Yeah, well, no pressure. Yeah, one of my really good friends that I first met, online, and we've since met each other, and we're buds now. He will occasionally just sort of look at me like, Kale, like, you're weird, man. I go, he's like, and what are you talking about? Because like I walk around my day feeling like pretty normal, like, a little bit, above average intelligence. He's like, no, you like know things that, and I just don't, that doesn't, because I forget stuff all the time, right? It's not like I'm like super automatic recall guy. And I know what I got on the SAT, and it was like certainly not going to get me into fancy colleges, that's for sure. But I read a ton, and I think when you have to get in front of 15, 20 kids at a pop, several times a day for big chunks of your year, I I should probably trust that a little bit more. Like I've had to, it's not like they're firing their guns at me all day long, but just I want to witness to them, right? And yeah. So I probably should remember that that's true about me. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there. So.
Well,
Yeah.
like you said, I know what my SAT was, and it's not going to get me into a big college, but you have a different kind of accreditation, which is called wisdom. You can share with people who are coming up who can get into bigger colleges. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like this is, I kind of say the same thing. Like I don't have children, like we're trying, but if I don't, I'm a part of a tradition in Alcoholics Anonymous where I help husbands.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And I help husbands who have children, and that I take that very seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The legacy question is absolutely an animating thing for us. That I mean, why are we bothering talking about this? Because I think we know that like it actually is really important. Like civilization matters, and it's easy to forget that, right? So I think that's right, Chad. That what has been given to you can't be kept with you, right? So there's the spirit of the gift, right? That what's so interesting to me. There's a great book by this guy named Lewis Hyde, and he's a kind of a non-institutional academic guy. Anyway, he wrote this book called The Gift, and he talks about the difference between the gift economy and the market economy. And the gift economy, which is Christianity operates, in the gift economy, right? Because we got the thing that we didn't deserve, and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's not a gift if you keep it, right? That there's something about the gift itself that you are a custodian to it, for it, by it, but that it only fulfills its magic, my word here, Lewis Hyde doesn't use that word, but it fulfills its magic by being taken and then being received and being passed on. Like it's like this, it's so important, and that human flourishing human societies must adopt the spirit of the gift, or it becomes nasty, brutish, short, and maybe that's what we are witnessing right now, right? You could talk about it in like neoliberalism terms, or like Marxist terms, or all these sort of different economic ways of kind of looking at the thing. But at the end of the day, what I think all of us are experiencing is the impoverishment of the gift economy, right? That somebody's holding on to something, or acquiring something and not passing it on. And that is true of houses. It's true of education. It's true of the faith. It's true of like all of these kinds of things. And maybe that's what we know. So you look at all the hand wringing that PVK does over like his channel, and like making money, and all these kinds of things. And I cannot tell you how much I admire Paul for wrestling with those things out loud, because and look, I have my differences. I think Paul should do more, frankly, because he's the real deal, and I believe that a laborer is worth his hire. This, Chad, because you have to hire yourself out all the time, and you're good at what you do, and you're worth it, right? So and this is something that I struggle with. It's like, okay, well, like, what does it mean that I'm worth it? Does that mean, like, I don't know, it's just like gets into these sort of uncomfortable territories. But what I think Paul is wrestling with is that, we know this from the Gospels, and we know this from the Acts of the Apostles, and we know this from the letters, that like when you charge for the gospel, something is afoot, right? This is charlatan space, and so what's that line, I think, is a real question. But if it's not characterized by the spirit of the gift, then it's probably time to poke around a little bit more and ask some heart questions.
Two things on that. First, I've said this a while ago, and I'll say it again. PBK should just make a book, or somebody should do this for Paul. Whoever's got skills out there, you should do this. Make a book and say, this is my first book, and only my mom has read it. That should be the title of it, or something like this. And then when you open the book, there's nothing in it but like a notebook. And then he can get all the proceeds. That way he doesn't have to write the damn book, which he should write the book. But
That's right.
But the second thing is if you do want to give money, just go right in the link below. We have a couple of links for where you can give some money, and be very happy for you to give some money. Thirdly, this principle, actually, a buddy of mine just passed me No Man is an Island by Merton, and the first chapter is this principle of you can't keep it unless you give it away.
Yeah.
Right. And like this is AA's had this principle. It's right in the literature. It says, you can't keep your sobriety unless you give it away.
Yeah. And
I actually think that this principle works both sides of the scale. So it's like, if you want to keep sorrow, just give it. And so that, I think, is actually some sort of some strange principle that works no matter what.
Yeah, no, I think you might be right, and it works positively and negatively. I think that's right. And
you could
there's a difference between sorrow and, let's say, resentment. Because I think of blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Yeah. There's a way in which, but I think I get what you're saying, Chad, that you become a reflection. And I think of resist not evil the same way, in that whatever you're resisting, you're having a relationship with that thing. And then inevitably you become two sides of the same coin of whatever you're having a relationship with. So
yes, it's the same principle though, and so there's this other thing though too, which I think, as you were talking, and it's something I've been railing on for a while, this idea of mercy over sacrifice. Now they shouldn't be probably detached, because I'm very much about the idea of sacrifice. Like, and I listen. I'm not saying that as a humble person. I have a huge lack of humility. This is why I need to do these things. So, like, I believe like you'll be humbled unless you take the humbling action. You will be humbled. Like, I really that. So, and all,
better to cooperate with it rather than to be undone by it or something like that.
right. And so, like, a lot of that can be conflated with works. All that, I don't really give a shit. All I know is my experience is this. If I don't take these actions, like I can have everything in the world and be feeling like, why the hell do I feel like I want to end it? Like, that's just kind of how I am, So mercy, though, I think is at the core of the topic here that Jordan Hull is talking about, is the core of what you're talking about. And I'm wondering why it's as if as you were talking, the sentence came to mind, and tell me if this is wrong. Mercy shouldn't be monopolized by Christ alone. So obviously, the mercy that we show others is because he first showed us. But still, like, can we not remember those types of things? Especially with, like, not only just like the Christian brothers and sisters that we have, but like the people who maybe will never proclaim their, like, a Christian faith. It's like, and like we also often talk about these things. We completely negate the whole timeline. Oh, he's like, we'll do this with like big name figures like, say, Peterson,
right?
Like, it's like, who are you to say? And how? I mean, what about like next year, or like maybe even 5 years ago already? Who knows? And there's
or maybe on his deathbed. I mean,
right.
I think I think it's probably best for folks to recognize that, number one, like, we don't really know, and therefore mercy is a pretty darn good default. It's a pretty good darn place to operate from. What is the parable where the guy is called before the king, and he pleads for mercy, and the king's like, okay, yeah, all right, and then he walks out and he runs into a guy who owes him money, and then comes after him and says, no mercy, and of course, he gets found out, and gets his comeuppance. And what did that guy think he got from the Lord? I mean, did he believe he sort of pulled a fast one?
Let me ask you this question, Kale. The parable of the workers in the vineyard, where they all get a denarius at the end.
Yeah.
I think the true reward is the 12 hours they had to work in the garden, or the 6 hours that they had to work in the garden. What do you think of that?
Yeah, man, that talk about a Rorschach test, right? That's what the parables are so powerful, right? Because if you scale it, right? If I'm looking at it the way that you're framing it here, Neil, the working in the garden, the vineyard here, sorry, the working in the vineyard is participating in that which you were destined for. And the person who doesn't get there until 15 minutes before the day is done and still gets his denarii, he gets it, like, he's there, like, he's on board, but he only got a chance to do it for 15 hours or 15 minutes, and I mean, if you've ever done something you truly felt like you were supposed to be doing, and I hope everybody gets that experience. I mean, for me, and I know I've said this before, but for me, it's like I'm in the classroom and we're reading Macbeth, and I'm on and the kids are on and we're working on this thing together and they're seeing things and I'm seeing things. And it's like, I'm staring at that clock and I'm like, don't you dare go off. And then this sort of like this urgency picks up and you're like, and then the bell goes off, right? Because time's time. And, and I know that that's a foretaste of heaven. And it sounds weird because like, what do you mean teaching Macbeth? Like, but it is, right? And that, I'd take 15 minutes, but man, if you give me 10 hours, oh man. Oh yeah. Absolutely. It's like, it's why I think something is as silly as surfing is such a powerful metaphor. And I think that's why anybody who surfs is like they talk about it and it's like, fine. But if you can catch the wave and you can be sort of in that flow state, why wouldn't you want it to be for 15 hours? 15 minutes is great. An hour, it's that much better, right? So yeah. Whereas but how do most people hear the parable, Neil?
I get how most people hear it, but actually where you're taking this is where I want to take this in regard to the present moment, the Kairos moment, in that it feels to me that the default setting is to bemoan the shrink and the decline of the once great institutions and everything we loved and the glory. And it's like, no. Don't you get it? We are here now in this time, in this place. Like God has given now. Like the moment is here.
We really struggle with this, don't we, Neil? I mean, we really do, right? And so when I teach poetry, like a poetry unit or whatever, we talk about, or I talk about, and none of this is original to me, so please, all my teachers are properly footnoted. It's not my idea. I'm just a mouthpiece. And well, you talk about there's sort of three moods of poetry, right? There's the lyric of anticipation, there's a lyric of consummation, and there's the lyric of lamentation, right? And the way that I teach this is with the kids, it's like Christmas morning, right? And I remember as a kid when the Sears Roebuck catalog came out, sometime in November, and you'd like look through that thing and you'd mark it up and whatever. It's all about it. I can't wait. This is going to be amazing. And Advent starts because Thanksgiving's now over. And like, man, Christmas morning is going to be the best. Right. And then you get to, the Christmas Eve night, and it's Christmas Eve. It's like, you go to this family party and this open house. Oh, man, this thing is taking forever. I just want to go to bed because I want to wake up. Right. And then, so all of that anticipation that's real, and boy, it's so exciting. Right. And then you wake up and you get your parents downstairs and boom, you rifle through all the presents, and it's like this sheer euphoria of consummation. And everybody knows what it's like to feel, it's like 11:30, 1:30, you're kind of sad, it's over, the lament
starts going down.
Absolutely. Down, right. And then, man, you're just like downright depressed. And you sort of, and you feel like a piece of garbage because it's like, it's over, but you got what you wanted, and yet you're kind of sad.
You ever hear the Gartner hype cycle? You ever seen that?
No.
So folks out there can look it up, but I find that this is the case like every new thing in my life. So there's an initial, and you can think of this as like the stock market bubble for the .com obsession in around 2000. There's this initial wave. It's called the peak of inflated expectations. Any new thing, and this applies individually, and then the Gartner hype cycle is intended to apply to broad things like the hype of a new product or a company or something like that.
Of course,
I think it's completely applicable at an individual level, because you start a new thing, right? I start on Chad's channel, but more importantly, I have a new friend in Chad. I'm like, yeah, things are awesome, and then Chad really ticks me off. That hasn't happened yet. It will happen. It will. That's really the true test of a friendship, is you have your first argument and away you go. But anyway, so you have the top of the cycle, top of the wave. And then, so this was around 2000, Amazon, Priceline, all these companies worth crazy amounts of money, Tulip Mania. And then,
Tulip Mania, exactly.
And Tulip Mania, same thing. And then and then you go into the trough of disillusionment is what it's called.
Oh, interesting.
Great Depression. And then you slowly kind of come out of it in the hype cycle. But the more I found that I'm able to identify where I am in that cycle in various aspects of my life, then I know like, oh, in Bible study that let's say I'm doing, if I'm like in the trough, it's like, no, this is normal. Like I just need to keep going. And that's the routine, right? That's the daily practice that Chad's always talking about. It's like, how do the daily practice or like the weekly mass or whatever it is, the whole point of that is so that when the trough of disillusionment happens, which inevitably it happens, that we have a plan to get out of it, whatever it is.
Yeah, right. And so you'll find, with poems, is that we have a ton of lyrics of lament, and we have a ton of lyrics of anticipation, but we have like a really like small sliver of lyrics of consummation. And I just think that's interesting, just from a human psyche standpoint, because it's really hard to be in the present, right? And it's really hard to capture the feeling of a flow state, yet we all understand what a flow state is, right? And so I think poetry can teach us that, that being able to kind of recognize, the mood or whatnot. And so to your point, I didn't know I thought this about the parable until you poked me here a little bit.
I have colonized the Kale.
Yeah, it worked, but it really is reframed it for me. Because I just got finished teaching Milton's Paradise Lost to the kids, and what one of the things that the kids are always surprised about is that in the garden, like they have work. Right, it's not just like sipping Mai Tais on the beach in Cabo, right? It's like they had, their work with, and of course, the embedded wisdom of that they're gardeners. Of course, they're gardeners, right? Because they recognize that they don't create the flower, they don't create the tomato or what have you, right? But they are there to cooperate and work with what has been given to them. So, of course, the primary way we are to understand our human being is that we are gardeners in this thing that we have received. And of course, a good gardener recognizes that you can ramp up production in a garden and shred the soil or whatever, and there's this sort of this cooperation with creation in order to yield proper fruit. And so I think all of that is true. And so maybe what we are doing here is to try to recalibrate the garden, right? That we can't afford to obsess about what kind of handle our spade is going to have attached to it, right? That for so much of the banter has been like, well, I think that it should be rubber, or I think it should be metal, or I think it should be corrugated, but whatever, and you could really, and hey, like, you ask me what I care. Well, I prefer this kind of handle. You like that kind of handle. Well, I'm right. So you can sort of see how these things degenerate into, kind of absurdities. But maybe that's missing the point, right? I think that's where we find ourselves in this flotilla, right? We find ourselves as like, can we like care about something bigger?
Yeah, rather, and also like a lot of the frame that I see things through is, so I look at, let's say, where does my malady sit? And it's in the selfishness and self-centeredness. And in like that, like a really useful thing that I learned a while ago was, because I was like going to all these different meetings and I was trying to find just the right meeting for me, like the right AA meeting or whatever. And maybe you guys can map this to whatever you like, but
literally everything, Chad. I mean, it could be, I'm looking for the right golf course. I'm looking for, the right church, the right pastor. I mean, like this is absolutely, we shop.
Kale, I'm sure you've heard this, but we don't have Roman Catholics around here. We have Roman Catholics.
Right, exactly. Right. And we're all looking for like the Xanadu parish, right? The unicorn parish. Right? Yeah. Go ahead. I totally get it.
Was like what I learned was that there wasn't going to be a meeting on the planet that was going to give me what I was looking for. Because there's not enough of it. Right. And even I don't know what that is. And like the second I have what I think I want, the shine wears off very quickly. Yeah. And so like an old timer asked me, he said, Chad, what do you think an AA meeting is? I said, well, it's a place where I go to get well. He says, no, it's not. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's a place where you go to give. That's it. That's the whole purpose of it, you know, and like, because in that mode, there's never enough of what you can give.
Man, that's so true. God,
So
that hits.
you just never run out of it.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you can start to take these little actions that reframe how you kind of see the world that you're in, you start to see, oh yeah, selfishness and self-centered, that we think is the root of all our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-fear, self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate seemingly without provocation. Like that's like the root of me. And so like if my whole and I've come to see like much of the world's problems that I see are rooted in selfishness and self-centeredness. And we don't like to say that because that's like a pejorative. It's like, I'm not selfish. It's like, come on, dude, just look at how we're wired.
Yeah.
We're selfish.
Well, and something I've been thinking about along those lines, Chad, is that, you know, the whole world as it is currently constructed and operates is geared towards separating me from you and me from Neil and Neil from me. And I mean, the whole thing is geared in that direction. Right. And so, and now you have, you know, the sort of the spirit of it in concert with that pulling and rending apart. And, you know, but the good news, right, to me, is that it doesn't have to.
Right.
You know, that we can actually find ways to connect. I mean, look at the three of us. We're in, you know, three, you know, quadrants of the country. You know, Neil south, I'm east, you're upper Midwest north, right? It's like we are far away, yet here we are, you know, generating fellowship that is great for the three of us. At least it is for me. You know, I don't know how you all feel, but I also know, interestingly enough, that people are going to watch this. That's wild, right? That you know that they're already part of this conversation, and I can't feel them or sense them or smell them or, you know, see them, but I know, because I know this is the way this thing works, is that, you know, the three of us are going to get notes from a couple of people saying, man, really enjoyed your conversation, it really helped me X with Y or what have you. And like, man, that's ridiculous and amazing and cool and a blessing, like actually a blessing.
Yeah. And it's not just willy-nilly farting around.
Right. That's right.
There is that, which I think is very vital. Like we need some of that. But it's far more than that. This isn't just like sometimes I wonder what the other, because I'll be on YouTube and I see like similar setups and channels and other channels and flotillas I know nothing about. I wonder what those people are talking about.
Yeah.
Do they have the sense that I have, where this is actually very serious, this is deep. This is deep.
We don't know what we're touching into right here, right now. And what I mean by that is like, when did the novel come about as a art form, Kale? I think it's only about 250, 300 years old, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So when the first novelists were coming out, was it something that was understood like, oh, this is going to be the future of story for the next 250 years?
Right.
Or I don't think so. And so what we're doing in this space here, it's been around for 5 years, if that, 10 years. And we have no idea what this will be in 10, 20, 30 years. I mean, there's perils to that. Obviously there's huge perils, but
we're not like, we're not like, oh man, we're going to go out there. We're going to change the world. I'm going to do this. It's not that. It's like, no, it is a fellowship. It's a deep fellowship. And it can't be. I love
the humbleness of it.
Touched exactly. Like, I have a difficulty trying to lay out exactly what I mean with that, but it's like the guys that stumbled over a solution to alcoholism, which also never really existed until like 90 years ago. They accidentally tripped over the solution and it happened to be God.
Yeah. It's prophetic, right? I mean, we actually vastly underestimate the historical destruction of alcohol. Like, you look at average alcohol consumptions by, whatever, like 25-year increments or what have you, man, like they drank a lot, and
it killed bacteria. I mean, the water, that's part
true.
of it.
Yeah, but
Right. That's
the
fair. But we're talking about booze, right?
right? I'm not against alcohol,
Right.
which is interesting. But so like the point is, for thousands of years since man has crushed grapes, there's a small percentage of people who are just like me, chronic alcoholics, who desperately wanted to stop but found they couldn't. And then 90 years ago, a couple of drunks accidentally tripped over a solution. Like, and like today, and after 3 years of trying to help people, you know how many people they found stayed sober? About 40. And they were like, it was like discovering a new continent. You know, that's why the book was written, and then later the meetings happened. But like, and today I can walk into a meeting, there's 250 people there, and half of us don't give a shit that the meeting exists. Like, it's like, what? The alcoholic hasn't changed. He's still the same. So and so I guess, sorry, I'm not trying to
You're
preach.
proclaiming the gospel. I mean, that's
No,
genuinely
but
what
yeah,
you're
you
doing.
really are. You really are, Chad. I think that's important. Yeah, you're because look, we're very comfortable thinking and talking out loud about patterns, right? But what you're saying here is really profound, and it is, the gospel is the gospel, and the gospel has been the gospel since Jesus was walking around doing his thing, right? And yet the fact that AA doesn't get discovered until less than 100 years ago, and what it discovered was the most ancient pattern of all, is remarkable, and I think telling and illuminative of why it works, and how dim we can remain, even after we thought we knew the gospel. Well, man, there's another element, aspect, fractal of the gospel that we needed to discover, and it took us almost 2,000 years to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's telling.
And so I think about this as it relates to what Jordan Hall is mentioning here about about no man left behind. We call each other home. That attitude. So like, you have altitude, which is, I think, Christ centric. For me, it's God centric. That's the altitude. But an attitude is out here. It's with my fellows, and that's very important. I need both. And so when he mentions that, I wonder, and I've often wondered this, even back before I was Christian, I would go to churches and stuff, and I'd go there just to listen. And I'd be wondering, what are these guys doing from Sunday to Sunday?
Yeah.
And at that time, it was more of a critique. And now today, especially the church I'm in now, it's 175 years old. It's very tied to its community, and 70% of them are in their 70s and getting older. And that's going to come quick, like the reality of that situation.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, how can I better not only be somebody who is trying to, because I don't like proselytizing. I don't think it works personally, but how can I better be a brother in Christ, even to those who don't know I'm doing that, and to those who will not become Christian? How can I better be a disciple, right? Even to those who don't know I'm discipling. And that's what I think you're doing in some sense, right? You're
what
sorry.
comes to my mind, and Kale, feel free to riff on this, but what comes to my mind is the road to Emmaus. They're walking in the wrong direction. And he's like, yeah, tell me about it. Like, oh, this guy,
But look at the vanishingly small opportunity moment there. I mean, it's two guys who were like down for it, right? I mean, they were in Jerusalem, and they were part of that rocket ride. And they're not the inner ring guys. They're not, the 12 apostles. They're not even like, the sort of the next level disciples. They're and they're walking away. Like, what an opportunity. It's so small. It's like it's Jesus and two dudes. Like, what? I'm always humbled by the microscopic origin point of this faith that we share and has built civilizations and has lost civilizations and will rekindle civilizations. It's like 12 dudes and a couple of hangers on, like just bonkers. And like that's wonderful, right? So, so there's no internet, there's no book, like there's nothing. Like they're 12 dudes who witness, along with, let's call them another 20 people, women and other folks, and they witnessed the resurrected Christ, this person that they knew intimately. And then from that, like, let's call it max 30 people, that I mean, at any point they could have gotten round up and killed, and so anyway, so those opportunities are just so mind-boggling. So Chad, you're here in this dying church, right? And 70% of the congregation is 70 and older, and in your lifetime you are going to see that dwindle to you. Okay. Now, from the world perspective, that's a complete catastrophe. That's not, no, can't happen. But you are you, and like you hold that, right? And however imperfect that you have, found yourself in this place in which, you are a bridge, you're a sort of a bearer of what? I don't know, wisdom, experience. You hold them in some fascinating way, and like you're going to carry, you're not going to die tomorrow, God willing, right? So sometimes it's one person, it's like some Shakespeare plays, it's like one person lives to tell the tale. In Moby Dick, the entire Pequod, goes under and everybody dies except for two folks at the very end. It's like you just need one person to keep that line going. And obviously there are more than one, right? And I don't know, I don't despair over those kinds of things in quite the same way, because you are an incarnate being. It comes to you, and look what you're doing, right? I mean, like both with your work with AA and these things that we do online, and like now it already hasn't died, Chad. It already hasn't died, because you have taken what you have received and you are spreading it. You were casting seed, and so we already won. Like, right?
You are way more punk rock than I thought, Kale. You are way more punk rock.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it's like everything's against us. We're gonna win anyway.
Yeah. I remember one time one of my friends said that he had an Irish grandmother or something, and it's like every Irish grandmother like thinks everything's always going to hell, but in the end it'll be fine. And I think that like that's me. It's like everything's a catastrophe. I mean, just look around. I don't have special eyes to see. You can all see it too. Just some people like to admit it and some people don't. But I really do believe in the end it's going to be great.
That's hilarious. Neil and I were just talking about that this morning, and he was saying talking about because like I've said for a while, and people have, I don't know that I've gotten some pushback on it. They think I'm being really negative, but I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't see us society as a whole being able to pull itself up from a swan dive that it's got itself in and just change its mind and do that. Like that doesn't, that I don't think that's possible, because we're so wrapped up in self. And and the reason why like another model obviously that I can kind of lay this over is like alcoholics don't just wake up one day and say, I think I'm just gonna quit and be done. It's like, no, they continue down. Like it's like spiritual help or alcoholic death. Tell me how bad the alcoholic death is.
Can we talk a little bit more on that? I want some details. Right,
yeah. Tell me how bad that is. It's like, well, I mean, that's why I think like whatever the Kairos moment seems to be, and what it's coming to, I'm right there with Peugeot, and he says I think it's just going to get a lot worse before it gets better, and like that could be daunting, but there's this line in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous that says, remember, alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful. And without
Cunning, baffling, and powerful.
there
Okay.
is too much for us, but there is one who has all power, and that one is God. May you find him now. And one day I was reading that, and it said, alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful, but there is one who has all power. That one is God. And I thought, holy shit, God had the power of alcohol, and he used it to bring me to my knees, to bring me to him.
So Chad, I don't know if you knew this, but what are the three words? Cunning,
Baffling, powerful.
Got
okay.
a feeling where Kale's going here.
So when Adam and Eve eat the fruit, that Satan in the serpent convinces first Eve and then Adam to eat. The way that two things that popped in my head. Number one, we call it an apple because of Milton, right? Prior to that, there were different depictions of it, but it really kind of solidified into an apple through Milton. And for the English in the 17th century, apples were used primarily for hard alcohol. Right? So hard cider was a big thing. So it was always associated with kind of like euphoric, specifically euphoric, drunk, high, right? And so that's number one. Number two, when they eat the fruit, they describe it. Milton describes it as if Eve has sort of tasted the way that an alcoholic would describe having a drink after a dry spell, right? It's just like, it's like immediately, yeah, right, and it's immediate, right? So even in that pattern, right? It's cunning, powerful, baffling. That is the plan of cunning and guile by Satan himself, right? By the dissembler is to be those things and to embody those three things. And so I think it makes perfect sense. It's total sense.
Yeah. But I also, as I said, I mean, if alcohol is powerful and God has all power, that means he had the power of alcohol.
Yeah.
And though he might have used it, or the accuser might have used it for bad, God used it for good.
Yeah.
And I see this all the time. Like I've seen somebody look as yellow as Homer Simpson at 30 years old, who actively tried to drink himself to death. Come to a type of bottom and desperately did something else about it. And he's still sober today, and he gives himself to service to others and seeking God. And that's why I don't think like society as we're in now is like, I mean, why would we stop acting the way we do? Like everything is so like cunning, baffling, and powerful.
Yeah.
It's amazing until it's
question.
not.
After every Mardi Gras period, and we're in a Mardi Gras period right now, whether we like it or not, we're in a Mardi Gras period. But after every Mardi Gras period, there's always a Lent. And really the question is, will it be forced upon us or,
Embraced.
take it upon our hearts? Yeah.
No, that's
so
right.
it's like one of my favorite awkward expressions, Kale. It's circumcise your hearts, y'all.
Yeah.
And,
Y'all.
Yeah. Oh, we don't actually say that down here, but I remember reading that multiple times in the Old Testament. It's like, what the heck does circumcise your heart mean? But that's what it means. It means your hearts are hardened. They're not receptive to correction. They're not receptive to repentance. Yeah. It's like the tearing of the clothes, right? It's I'm naked once again before God. So.
Right. And it's necessary, like in a weird sort of way, because what is the no one's closer, this is why prisoners have a particular grace, right? Because they recognize that they live at the mercy of others all day, every day, right? And so there's a peculiar insight that one gets in that we all need, though none of us are going to sort of elect to be prisoners, but then just like you said, Neil, it's like, yet we all are really prisoners to our appetites and we don't like to admit those things, right? And so, Chad, once again, like to your point, the reason why the pattern is so powerful for you is that you see it everywhere, and you see it everywhere for a very real reason. It's not you like hero worshiping this thing that got you out of a pit. It's that, yeah, did that too, but it's that, no, it's actually, it's the pattern that all of us need, because all of us are degenerate that way, right? So there, Neil, I'm going to make a plug here for the Total Depravity.
The primacy of grace.
Yeah, that's right. It swirls around the same mystery.
And I still have it, right? I still have a draw to the cunning, baffling, and powerful.
Yeah.
Like I was like 5 years sober, and I was watching it was on Netflix. It was called The Dirt. It was the Motley Crue movie.
Okay.
And there's a scene in there where Nikki Sixx is sitting in his closet, and he's reaching his bottom.
Yeah, right.
And when he's there, he's got like this pistol. It's just a dark scene. But I was thinking, part of me was saying, there's something really attractive about that. Wow. And it made me step back and was like, weird. Like, why is, like, there'll be times where, just the weirdest times where, like, one day I would wake up and I'd think, it'd be a good idea is if I like hitchhiked to California and just was like a beach bum drunk. Like,
sure.
Like that thought just passes in an ear and went out the other. It's like, where did that come from? And like, this is, I've learned to have, and I'm not inflating myself here. I'm just being honest. I've learned to have really great respect for my ability to destroy beautiful things. Like, I have to have really good respect for my ability to fall asleep at the wheel and destroy beautiful and freely given things. And
well, you better, right? I mean, not just you. I mean, we better respect the heck out of that, right? Because one of the the sort of JBP-isms that I really appreciate is he really will talk very frankly about the burden of your own being. To shoulder that. I really like when he talks that way, because we've been lied to about that, and part of that burden, so you're talking honestly, Chad, part of the burden that you bear is that you get the attractiveness to want to just blow it all up. There's a and that's real. And I look, as a as a husband and as a father and as a teacher, man, I really get the desire just to like freaking walk away. Right?
Yeah.
Like, walk away, man. Why am I doing all what is none of it means anything anyway, right? Which is so the chirping. It's the chirping of the serpent in your ear, right? And so it colonizes your imagination. You start fantasizing about X, Y, and Z, right? It's like that's absolutely part of it. And so the to shoulder the burden of being is to take that up too, right? And recognize that part of being a man, is to recognize that I have monster in me, but I also have Christ in me, and again, I don't want to be sort of too pat or new agey about it, but there's a war there, and all of us have to admit that, but that doesn't go away. I think that, as you point out, like that doesn't go away. You have to tame that.
That's tame that. I think it's a bad idea to rest on the idea of gratitude as mere thought. Like, gratitude is action. It's it's like love is a verb. Same with gratitude.
It's like faith is what you do.
Yes.
Well, it's kind of like you can start gratitude through prayer, in that prayer is like that initial step of choosing gratitude, you could say, and then to the St. Paul, you pray without ceasing. It's like, am I praying right now while I'm talking? Yes, I'm praying while I'm talking. If I'm aimed at the appropriate thing, let's say.
We're aligning ourselves and resonating with, deep music.
That's the Lord's Prayer, right? Like, I've wanted to talk about the Lord's Prayer for a long time with people, because it's just so, it's one of those things where it's so, you hear it so often. I don't know how much we actually think about it, but like the idea
Totally.
that there is no I in the Lord's Prayer.
Mm.
Like the whole thing, in my opinion, is it has nothing to do exactly with me. It has to do with us. So like it's not, there's no talk.
Us.
Yes.
We like, it's like it always already is communal, even when I'm saying it alone in my room.
Yes, that's right. Which I believe all prayer should be exact. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Mm.
Like that's why I find it difficulty if I'm praying for others. Even I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to pray for. I just say, if I'm doing like what do they call that? Where you're just saying a prayer off the top of your head.
Extemporaneous prayer.
Yeah, like if I include people's names, I just say their names. I don't know what I'm saying. Like I don't know, man. But
that's right, though. That's right, Chad. That instinct is absolutely right. It's an invocation of the person through name. It's powerful.
Yeah,
and it's our birthright as sons of Adam, right? We name things.
So about naming, real quick. So the parable where they're surrounding the woman, the sinner, they're going to stone her, and then Jesus begins writing in the sand.
Love that.
And okay, so here's why I think I'm right about this. It says they leave from oldest to youngest. They leave from oldest to youngest.
In order.
In order. I think he's writing their names because there's nothing that scares someone more than someone you don't know who says, "You're a Kale Zelden. I know who you are." And the oldest, the closest to judgment, the closest to, in some ways, the
that's great. I really like that.
Christ.
And of course, he's Christ, so he knows your name. Right? You know?
But think, because one of the topics I wanted to discuss with Chad, we don't have to discuss this. I wanted to discuss this with Luke, but it's like the fear that keeps people from participating, let's say, in this community or not a community that we have, right? And it's it's that named thing. It's that like, oh, it's me. Like I'm putting myself out there. And then it's to the end of time, it's me and all of my nakedness to the, that's terrifying. But the question is, so I've said this before, like I'm more terrified of God than I am of people. Like I'm like, anyway.
Yeah,
well, don't get me wrong, but like my love of God is greater, thanks be to God. But like,
I think that's essentially what the whole space is about. This channel and all this shit has nothing to do really with me or with you guys. This has to do with excuse me.
Well, Chad,
that's why it's nameless.
Nameless is in the title. I mean,
right?
That's the flip, right? You flipped it. You've invoked it by flipping it, right? That's the conceit.
So it has to do with like maybe somebody is stumbling around in the wilderness, in the desert, and trips over something, and in that moment, maybe they find a beginning to something different. That's the whole point. And we get the joy of doing silly shit along the way,
right,
which is very fun. And like I've had some of the most incredible conversations. You know that flow state you're talking about. If you're a musician, you'll know like what it's like to be in a pocket. Like that feeling is just so perfect. Like I've had that in conversations with people over on the Discord. One of the first times that ever happened, it was Luke and I. Luke Thompson and I were talking in the Discord, and it was just like, whoa, like, and I've experienced that, a lot of that in person, like doing like a fifth step with somebody and things like that, and it's powerful. This is, this idea, these things that these incredible gifts that are just the most unlikely of things that could ever happen, like being able to speak and hear and understand words that we're sharing is incredible. And these are the most incredible miracles. And they're just constantly flowing out of our mouths all the time. And we don't even think about how incredible it is.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm doing this. I wanted to eat at the table. And that's why I did this channel. It's just for fun, and the great joy of like when you hear something that somebody else shares, it's like, oh my God. And like, I don't know, I can't recite half the shit I hear on this these spaces. You know, I can't like if you were to give me a quiz on it, I'd fail. But
Sure.
I know when I hear it, I'm hearing it, and like the more I participate, the more I'm able to actually gain a confidence, so I can actually go out, because I'm awkward, man. Like I feel awkward around people, but this helps me, so I can actually go and have a conversation with the customers at work.
Yeah.
Just be okay with them.
Yeah.
You know, and this is all great gifts. So I don't know how much we got into the whole thing with Jordan here, but maybe we did. I mean, so how can we better do what he's saying? This idea, like specifically, the no man left behind, and helping call each other home. Like, how do we really do that?
Well, I think we need to stop being obsessed with scale. You know, I think we live in a world where you can win World War II by, you know, ramping up the war machine, and so all the factories in Detroit are doing this, and all the people over here are doing that, and this is massive scale that is mind-boggling, right?
Mm.
But that's why I fixate on the road to Emmaus. Like, the road to Emmaus is like one Jesus and two dudes, and it's at that level, it's at that radical level that we live this thing out, you know. So when Jordan seemed to claim or answer to John as like, this is an answer to the meta crisis, is that we experience the meta crisis imaginatively as meta, but individually as acute. And so, you know, it's deeply helpful to me to know that other people are going through a meaning crisis. It is truly, you know, but we get to work out that meaning crisis, you know, one at a time, you know, here at a time. And so there's a secondary scale to it, but, you know, we are paying attention to each other right now. And so that's where discipleship happens, right? I mean, you know, if you think, you know, if you know, when you think about like, how did the gospel just like actually spread, you know, and we have a couple of these sort of these spectacular moments where, you know, 300, you know, joined after hearing, you know, Peter speak, you know, on the day of Pentecost and all those kinds of things, right?
I personally like Legion, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, but you know, you have to imagine then that like there would be these connections. You're like, okay, like there's an after moment where, you know, like you get inducted in, you know, one at a time, right? You know, and so you know, and then, you know, Peter and Paul, they like walk around and talk to people, and, you know, so it's a maybe the meta crisis is in some sense thinking that we can attack it in a meta way and not in an individual person to person way.
I love this so much. Like, you have no idea, Kale, how much I love this in so many ways. The fetish of quantity. It's like number of likes, number of subscribers, how rich my life is how many friends I have, like number of comments, like the quantity. I hate it. I hates it.
I hates it.
Yeah. And when I came out of the lurk, and I didn't even realize I was doing this, but as I was realizing that I was doing this, I started to make it conscious, because I think what you're pointing to is the answer. I really do think this is the answer, where aside from me, I don't think anyone else in the corner has stated this outright. And this might be the third time I'm stating it, which is, I came out of the lurk to make friendships with individual people, with people that I saw that I'm like, I think I could be really good friends with this person.
Yeah, totally.
And I said that to Chad. I'm like, I think we would get along really well. And a few other people. And it's like, everybody in the corner is like so welcoming, so egalitarian. Come on in. And that's awesome. And genuinely speaking, I'm like that. But I can't control like who I find more interesting or who I really like. And I can't control that. And it's like, Christ has favorites, and it's almost like he gave us permission. Seriously, like Christ. I love this about it's like one of these things we don't like to admit, that it's like, oh, he only takes 3 of them up on the mountain, right? He has a beloved disciple. He has a beloved disciple,
right.
And it's like, that gives me permission in
Yeah.
my life to have a best friend. It gives
Right.
me permission to have a hierarchy of attention, almost to be
Mhm.
like, I'm going to pay the most attention to these people because, like, it's love, but it's like I'm not pretending to be
Who-
this egalitarian person that I can't be. I have a favorite. I have my wife. I have
who-
my
who-
daughter. Like,
yeah,
you know what
I
I
mean,
mean?
like, who am I, Lord, that you would come into my house? And you're
Yeah.
like, what? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
That to me, has to be it. You know, that I mean, and that to me, those are the parts of the gospel that are just so resonant to me. Like this is so
And it's so
true.
radical, right? If
Yeah.
you're trying to win people, and it's like what? Like,
Well, when he did the thing with the Legion guy, I think this is what hooked me. This is where my whole conversion happened.
Mhm, mhm.
Is after he heals him, this nameless dude, walks up to Christ as he's about to leave, and he says, "Can I go with you?" And Christ is like, "No.
No.
Why don't you stay here and help your friends and tell them what the Lord did?"
Mhm.
Like that, bang. I'm like, oh, yeah.
There's a great sequence in A Man for All Seasons, the story of Thomas More, and he's got this hanger on. His name is Richard, and Richard is really after Thomas to get him a position at court, right? Because he's ambitious, and Thomas is sort of humoring him, and he sort of says at one point, "No, I think you should be a teacher." And he didn't want to be a teacher because he doesn't want to be a nobody, right? And Moore's like, no, I really think you should be a teacher. And at first, you're sort of watching this thing unfold. You're like, dude, come on, Thomas, like, do the man a solid. Like, people, like, well. And then you realize, and he becomes the sort of the Judas figure, the villain. In the end, he sells Thomas More out, and you realize that Thomas More wasn't being arbitrary. He was being very specific, and he was looking at Richard Rich was his name. He was looking at Richard Rich right in the face and saying, no, you must be a teacher. You must not be a courtier, because when you go to court, you will lose your soul. Right. And that like, talk about a kind of radical individually, Moore saw him, right, but he didn't want it, he
so I
didn't
think
want
a
it.
PVK in that way.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Me too.
so when because he talks about he's been in that role before where he has to administrate and manage and govern the whole thing, and he knows where it ends. I saw in my company once, I was in that sort of role where I was managing about 8 to 10 people, and I was doing okay. I thought I was doing okay, and I was high status, bee's knees.
Right.
And then one of the most experienced people on the team, even more experienced than me, but he was in a technical role, he was leaving the company. And because he was leaving the company, he felt like he could speak frankly to me. And he sat down with me. And it was someone, and it hit, feedback's right when it's coming from a place of love, and it hurts. And it hurts. And when he spoke to me, he's like, I don't think this is the role for you. Like, I don't even remember the specifics of what he said, but it was a place of like genuine care. And it was just and I knew it was honest because he didn't have anything to gain, like only things to lose by telling me this an uncomfortable conversation. Yeah.
So I was just going to say, so this is exactly, so, Chad, you sort of think about your legacy and you think about like your work, part of it for me is I want to be the man who can tell, the young buck, no, or yes, or whatever, right? So my prayer then is sort of, Lord, make me the man who is able to say the true thing in charity to someone who needs it, because like your kingdom depends upon it. Right. And so,
but
like,
it has to come from that place of love.
That's right.
Has to be there.
That's right. Right. Not and it's very easy to sort of to sort of fall off that. But I think that, like, think of the gift that was to you, Neil. I would imagine that was tremendously informative for you.
Oh yeah.
And that's a moment of mercy too, to be honest with somebody like that.
Yeah. Right. I mean, this is sometimes it's a severe mercy, right?
Mm-hmm.
My father told me the single most important thing you can do as a manager is that the people who are reporting to you, it is your absolute duty that they know precisely how they're doing on a regular basis. On a regular recurring basis, that they know how they're doing. There should never be any surprises in any job, unless it's something that's so obscene. But if it's so obscene, then like it's not a surprise, because it's but so many times it's like, oh, you're doing fine, and
then you're not. I agree. It's hard to do, right? Because nobody wants to be mean except those people who do want to be mean, and you already know those people, right? So it's
Wow. Well, what do you guys think? Do you guys think we should wrap it up and do another one some other time, maybe?
Oh yeah, this has been fun. I probably should land the plane soon. I'm getting desperate texts from my kids like, "Hey Dad, like how you doing over there?" Like, just fine. Be right around the block.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kale and Neil, for spending
my goodness
today.
Awesome. Kale, it's a pleasure meeting you.
It's been great in person thing.
I've seen a lot of you. I've lurked, and sometimes I could be snarky, and I've lost more friends due to my mouth over my life, and I am getting better, and I hope but thank you, and it really was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, same.
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to it, and thank you for responding to the email, and I think we got somewhere, so that was good.
Yeah.
So
the time was ripe. It was the Kairos time, right? That's too soon, not too late. So it was perfect.
Sure. Well, stick around, you two, real quick, and I'll pause the recording. But say bye, everybody.
Arrivederci.
Hasta.
The Friday Morning Fragment.
Wow!
DL for now. Oh, hello there. Well, I'm Tom Lukeson, and this here cool cat right here, well, you know who he is, of course.
Yeah, this is a quick public service announcement that the Friday Morning Fragments, it's not just for us.
That's right, y'all. You see, this here fragments, they're intended for any and all whole-body persons. Not just me, not just this guy, but anybody. If you got a conversation, if you're in this little corner, I don't know what corner that is, a little Cornish, but, occasionally this guy gets... No, the final pitch, y'all. The final pitch is if you have any conversation that you want to see here on the Nameless, the one and only Nameless, then you just got to send it to the email address is right here. It's chadthealcoholic@gmail.com. And if you want to see yourself branded appropriately, you best be doing it. You got any final
Friday Morning Nameless, where it's at.
Now that's all now. Y'all stay holy.
To be able to create something that normally happens in the sun on an island in the Pacific, or to be able to rewrite a cell the way Craig Venter did, synthetic biology. We are now gods, but for the wisdom. The world's most serious human beings should be working on the twin nuclei problem. What do we do with new godlike powers given our history of conflict, our history of envy, our history of madness? We should definitely try it. Everybody believes that should work on that problem. Well, it's the Moses. It's the Moses thing. It's time to go. It's time to leave. This place is over. We get off the planet. I freak people out when I say that, but look at your world. Everybody who has a possible plan to avoid what is coming if we don't have one should work on the plan that he, she thinks best.
Now this is the plan. Get your ass to Moss.
Enough. Just go to the church. Guys, I can't hear the same story any more times of like, I tried to go to church, but it was too hard. Enough. You sit in the seat and you listen, okay? Enough. Just go to the church. Enough. Like, enough. Just go to the church. Enough. I'm tired of hearing your excuses.
Amen.
Enough, folks. Enough. Okay, put your big boy pants on. Enough, folks. We're done. We're done pretending we don't know how to give the pill to the dog.
Right. And they're much simpler than we ever imagined.
It's not that hard. Guys, we need you. High in openness, high in creativity, disagreeable people, you also need to be in the church. You put the pill in the peanut butter. You take the pill, you put it in the peanut butter, you give it to your dog. Enough.
Should be a meme.